There are different screw patterns for different applications with corrugated sheeting products. In my case, I'm in a really high wind area, so I'm choosing to put a screw in every second corrugation. To avoid warping the layout, I put a screw in the center of the panel.
You come and go like a monsoon rain. You hide and show like a lightning bolt. You have it all.
The latest addition to the back entrance of this house is putting this laser light or polycarbonate awning up. We reframed it, added new polycarbonate on the top. And it was part of a general rehabilitation of this whole back entryway. I'm going to take you through the whole process of the demolition of the old awning, swapping out the tin roof for transparent polycarbonate, reframing it. My client wanted to have more light coming through on this side of the house so she could get more light in here on the shady side of the house. So that's why we've replaced the iron with transparent polycarbonate. Is to rebuild this awning. We're going to be replacing the iron with clear laser light so they can get more light into this side of the house. Today we're going to be demolishing the existing iron on top in preparation for building a new frame and then sheeting it with our laser light so they can get more light in here, get less moss building up on things.
This is what our awning will look like when completed, but first we're going to have to deconstruct the old one. My first step is to remove the old rusting iron roof. There's a few rivets to drill out on the flashing, and the rest is held together with some roofing screws and nails. I don't trust the strength of this structure to stand on the outside of the awning. I think it's going to be safer to work from the ladder and lean over to remove the roof nails. Using a small crowbar and hammer, I work my way over the entire surface of the roof, working slowly and carefully to remove all the nails. It's important to continually reposition the ladder as we work from one section to the next. I try to take extra care when I'm working from the top of a ladder. Even from this height, you could sustain a serious injury if you had a fall. After removing all the nails from the outside of the awning, I've decided the inside is strong enough to take my weight. Working backwards, I remove the last remaining nails and peel the tin off as I go. Demolition of a structure like this can be extremely dangerous, and I don't recommend it unless you're a professional tradesman.
I remember hearing songs, decades old, but it doesn't matter. Stumble across old memories, try to recall before they all shatter.
With all the demolition complete, the next thing I have to do is construct a temporary scaffold to set the beam and posts in place. I attach some temporary blocks to the existing roof rafters to give my scaffold a secure anchor point. I'm carefully measuring the bottom of the eave. I need to calculate where I'm going to set the outside beam. It has to sit lower than the eave so the rain will run off it, but not too low that you bump your head on it when you walk outside the back door. The temporary rafter I'm screwing into place is what's going to hold the beam up whilst the cement sets on the bottom of the posts later on. I double check the whole thing with my level to make sure that it's slightly leaning downhill away from the house. When I'm satisfied I've got the correct angle, I lock it into place with a temporary post. I duplicate this frame on the other side of the deck and lock it into place with a few cross beams. This is a drawing I prepared earlier that has all the key dimensions and layout of the structure. It also helps me calculate all the materials I'll need on site, including the roof sheeting. I'm using a piece of scrap timber to calculate where our posts are going to be set. My client wants the awning to extend past the deck area, and there's a wooden step we have to build it around. So by visually looking at this scrap piece and double checking it with my tape measure, I can get a clear idea of how I want to lay out these posts. The parking space right next to our construction project is a good place to stack all my materials and cut them as I need to length. As I set up to cut the first of the 2 posts, I always double check my timber sitting exactly flat on my miter saw before I make the cut. It's important for me to check this first post in place to make sure all our calculations are correct before moving on to cutting the second post. I lay the first one over the top of the second one and scribe it, then double check with my tape measure. I don't have any spare material, and because I'm working out in the countryside, it's a long way for me to resupply if I cut the piece wrong, so it's always worth triple checking. I lay both pieces next to each other in preparation for marking the checkouts. Because these posts are identical to each other, it's more accurate and efficient to mark them both at the same time. This notch is what's going to hold the main beam in place. After clearly marking the area where the material needs to be removed from, I set the depth of my saw blade in preparation for the cut. I want to remove 22.5 millimeters from the top of our posts. This first cut has to be accurate and square, as it sets the outside boundary of the notch we're creating. I then make multiple sliced cuts, working from the end of the post back to the first cut. The thin slices I created with the saw make it easy to remove most of the material by knocking it out with a hammer. I then finish off the process with my chisel, continuing to smooth it out. The saw cuts act as a guide to how deep the notch is supposed to be. I work slowly and carefully with the chisel to smooth out all the bumps that sit above the saw notches, so I end up with a flat and flush base for the beam to be attached to later. After I've removed most of the material, I use my set square to highlight any bumps that I need to chip away. My orbitable sander removes any of the last burrs and helps round off the corners. I then repeat the whole process on the second post.
Back up the drive a bit, could you see what this is? This is a part of it all. Over and over, injustice to injury, this is a part of it all. Could you hike back to it, fight with it, sit with it, this is a part of it all.
With the checkouts on the post complete, it's time for me to pre-assemble the posts and beam out on the driveway where I can lay it flat, drill my holes and check that it's square before we reassemble it over our scaffolding later. I mark out my bolt holes with the square and pencil and then drill a small pilot hole as a guide for the larger drill bit. The smaller pilot holes help the large drill bit from drifting off center. I'm drilling through the beam into the post, then using a bolt to lock it in place. Double check the joint is square and drill the second hole. I repeat this process for the second post and then start assembling all the pieces in place over our scaffolding.
Will you only drink from the thoughts of yourself? Are you under the canopy spell? You dig in your heels and spread the disease. You're spreading the disease. Back up the drive a bit, could you see
pieces are set in the correct place on the scaffold, I double check with my level and realise I need to add a 10mm packer on one end to have it completely flat. With the posts hanging plumb in the final position they're going to be in, I set a scrap piece of wood directly under them so I know where to dig the hole for the concrete I'll be putting in later. I unbolt the posts and return them to our work area so I can install the steel brackets that'll be sitting in our concrete and connected to our posts. I hold the bracket tight and centered to the post, then drill one hole halfway through. I insert a bolt in this hole to hold the bracket in place, then drill my second hole and insert a second bolt in that hole. I roll the posts over and get the other two holes started with my drill, then remove the bracket and the bolts and drill out the holes to the back of the post. Then I assemble the bracket with bolts and nuts, just a finger tight, to check its fit. I complete the process on the second post and cut off the nuts flush with the bolts with my grinder.
Of all the magic places in the world I've been to, this is where my heart is. Oh, you know it's true. No matter where I go, I'm coming home to you. Been walking down the street so many times, my feet know every brick and stone. Could wear a blindfold. No matter what I do, I'm coming home to you. And I don't know why, don't know why, don't know why I'm always feeling homesick.
With our holes for the concrete dug to the right depth and in the right place, I reassemble the posts onto the beam. I check they're completely vertical and plumb with my level before tightening off all the bolts. It's important not to over tighten the nuts. I don't want to crush and bruise the timber. I do one last check with the level, as after we've poured our concrete, these posts won't be adjustable. It seems like a lot of extra work pulling off and putting the posts back on again, but when you're building a structure like this by yourself, I've found it the most accurate and safest way to complete the process. To prepare for the concrete pour, I'm adding a piece of plywood next to the hole to avoid cave-ins. I also need to add some timber bracing to the very bottom of the posts to stop the concrete pushing them out of alignment when we pour it.
Turn around and show your face, let me see parts of you. Oh my, our bodies interlace, slow and easy. And I can reach you from a distance, I can, so beautiful. I can hear you within the silence. Ooh.
Our construction location is close to the beach and has very sandy soil. I'll be adding recycled concrete pieces to create larger footings than I might normally do. I'm making a standard high-strength concrete using pre-mixed bags. I often mix concrete from the raw elements as I did earlier in this project. It's a lot more economical for large volumes of concrete. But in this case, it's just a small amount of concrete, so it's quicker and easier to use the pre-bagged mix.
Now everything that has been don't matter no more. We've burned it. All those whirlwinds can't touch us no more. We've earned it. Everything that has been don't matter no more. We've burned it. All those whirlwinds can't touch us no more. We've earned it.
I have a strategy for mixing recycled concrete into my foundations without compromising the strength of it. The recycled concrete pieces need to be washed and thoroughly cleaned so they can adhere to the wet concrete. I use pure concrete mix for the top 150mm of the foundation to give it an extra strong top layer and avoid any cracking on the surface. It's also important to make sure there's wet concrete surrounding each recycled piece. That way the whole foundation can connect together the same way a brick wall would with mortar in between the bricks. I top off our second post hole with concrete until it's about 75mm from the bottom of our bracket. I allow the foundations to set up solid overnight before removing the timber braces the next morning.
Come closer, dance for me. Easy tiger, easy, let your hair down. Come closer, let me see all your million faces and all your million mistakes. You don't need to hide. Come closer so that we can be together. Everything that has been don't matter no more. We've burned it. Oh.
After removing some of the framing from our scaffold that's no longer needed, I start setting the other major beam that'll be part of the core of the main frame for our roof support. I've attached my large set square with a clamp to the outside beam so I can roughly line up the inside beam square to the structure. I've left the side beams of the awning long so I can scribe them in place for a more accurate cut. I temporarily attach it tight up against the rafter so I can get my pencil mark. After cutting it to size, I return it in place and check to see how flush the joint is on the outside of the awning. I'm satisfied it's fitting snugly. My next step is to remove this side beam, switch the safety bracket to the other side, and then test fit it on the other side of our awning to see if it matches. After confirming that it fits properly, I use this beam as a template to cut a second beam, then attach both of them in place to complete the principal framing of our awning.
This rain's really setting in, so we're going to take a break, come back tomorrow and finish the rest of the framing.
We'll be completing all the internal structural framing, starting with the rafters and then filling them out with blocks in between. That creates the attachment points for the roof sheeting. I'll then custom cut our polycarbonate panels and install them in place with specialised roofing screws. To install our rafters, I'm checking with the drawing to make sure that the gap I've set between the rafters is going to fit the frame that I've built so far and not run into the post in any kind of awkward way. My drawing is just a rough guide, and often the real world structure varies from the initial drawing, so it's worth double checking with my tape measure before we make the final calculation of how we're going to lay the rafters out. I now need to transpose the numbers on the paper to the timber frame we'll be installing them on. I write out the measurements as I mark the frame, as I'll have to repeat the marks on the outside of the frame as well. I make sure the end of my tape measure is anchored securely as I drag the tape measure across our structure to ensure a really accurate layout. Once all the rafter points are marked on the frame that's attached to the existing roof, I repeat the process on our main beam that our posts are attached to. My next step is to establish the angle of the roof slant by referencing the side frame that comes off the main house. I transfer this angle to my miter saw where I can actually see how many degrees it is. This will enable me to easily cut all the rafters at the right angle. With the first rafter fitting snugly, I fix it off with a single screw on the inside of our timber frame. It's always important to drill pilot holes first, but especially important when you're drilling in on an angle. I then add a single screw to the rafter through the outside of the frame and double check it hasn't twisted out of alignment with our pencil marks. Then drill out the other pilot holes and fix it in place. With the outside end of the rafter attached securely, we finish off the inside end by adding 2 more screws. Because these screws are fixed in on an angle, it's stronger to have 2 on one side and 1 on the other. The screw heads on this structure are going to be visible for the most part, so I've set up a pattern for the screws that I measure out with my set square. This way we'll have a visually consistent layout of all the fixings. Because the rafters are the key component of the internal framing of our structure, it's important that they're all exactly the same length. We want to keep the beam attached to the eave of the existing house and our outside main beam exactly parallel. I'm test fitting the third rafter I've cut to see if it'll fit tightly in the last two positions of our rafters. One of the reasons I kept the scaffolding in place through this process was to keep our outside main beam tight and parallel to the existing house. After confirming the third beam fits both final positions, I use it as a template and scribe it onto my raw material to cut the fourth rafter.
I know the hour's getting late. I shouldn't sit here and contemplate. I just can't stop thinking about it. I won't forget a single thing, from drunken nights to Sunday mornings, and how you smile at me. We should stay here beside me. This isn't how it's supposed to be. Wish you'd stay here right with me. I can't shake that feeling that we said goodbye too soon.
That completes the principal frame of our awning structure. We've still got to put the blocks along the inside. That's what the laser light or the polycarbonate roofing is going to attach to. This scaffolding was a big help working by myself because I was able to suspend some of these big beams. But now that we have these rafters in, it's all solid and attached. We don't need these anymore, so we're going to rip these down.
Wish you'd stay here beside me. This isn't how it's supposed to be. Wish you'd stay.
The next step will be to put a pair of 2x4s all the way along in between these rafters. That's what the roof material is going to screw down onto.
The row of blocks for the inside of our frame up against the existing roof have to be set far enough away from the guttering so I can install the roof screws through our sheeting without the guttering getting in the way. Using a scrap piece of timber cut to the right length and scribing it with my pencil is the quickest and most accurate way to get a mark on all 6 rafters. I measure and mark where the centre blocks will be fitted, then cut a piece of scrap timber to match that mark and repeat the process I did for the inside frame. You could achieve the same result using a chalked string line, but due to the height of our structure, I find this easier and quicker. In theory, all the gaps between our rafters are identical in length. In practice, there'll be slight variations due to wood thickness and bends in the timber. So I measure all the rafter spaces to find the one that's the narrowest. I'll start with that one because I can push it back into plumb to match the other gaps. It turns out the 2 outside gaps are the narrowest, which makes sense. When I was installing the side frames, I made sure the natural bend in the wood was set on the inside. This way we can use the blocks to push them out to be exactly straight. It also makes it a lot easier to fit the blocks into a tight space. They don't move around as much or fall out when you're trying to drill them.
But there's some words that I just wanna hear you say, to put it all straight before this night turns into day, and then I'm on my way. Yes, I'm on my way. A bit naive and so eager to please. You know I played for love, but it got me on my knees. Now's the time to reap what I've sown. Your words echoing in every single bone.
If a block doesn't feel tight enough to stay in place whilst I add the screws, I remove it, cut a slightly oversized block and add it into the gap next door. Now there'll be enough compression for this block to stay firmly in place whilst we add our screws. The first screw often wants to twist the block out of alignment with the pencil line. I use the clamp as an extra pair of hands to hold it in place. Once the block is fixed in place at one end, I remove the temporary block and fix the screws in the other end. I test out the strength of the block by suspending myself off the ground for a little bit. A roof structure like this should be able to hold a person easily.
One way, gonna lay down, be still, won't waste another tear. Wait till it disappears.
Now, as the last row of blocks along the eave of the house would get in the way of the installation. These steel brackets add a lot of strength to our joinery. I'm installing them on both ends of each rafter, connecting to our main beams. I hold them tight where the frame joins and lock them in place with the built-in nail that's part of the bracket. Then hammer in the specialised galvanised nails all around the bracket. Awnings and veranda roofs can be very susceptible to the wind getting underneath them and causing damage. This property is right on the beach. A lot of powerful storms blow in from the ocean around here. So these brackets are going to help hold the roof in place.
Hey darling, can I tell you what's been on my mind? Sick and tired of the 9 to 5 in the city life. Darling, we could get out of town, see the beautiful world around, wanna see it now. Pack our bags and get in that car, leave a little note and we'll drive real far.
With the steel brackets all in place, we can now install the last row of blocks. This is what the inside edge of our sheeting material is going to be attached to. I scribed and cut the piece of timber a couple of mil larger than the gap. This way I can achieve a really tight fit. I take my time hammering this block in place as it's a really close fit under the guttering. I install these blocks the same way we installed the previous blocks, with the principle of having a really tight fit, but not so tight that it pushes our frame out of plumb.
Give me tears so I can cry. Give me heart so I don't die. Give me tears so I can cry. Give me heart so I don't die.
Ready to install the polycarbonate roof sheeting. It comes in pieces over double the size we need, so I'm going to start by cutting the sheets in half. My client's not sure how much overhang she wants on the awning, so by cutting them oversize and putting a piece in place, we can come up with a formula for what the final cut will be later. There's many different tools you could use for cutting polycarbonate. For this project, I'm going to use a metal cut-off blade in my grinder, as it's a really effective way of cutting multiple sheets at once. The end cut with the grinder will be hidden under the gutter, and we'll use the factory edge to overhang the outside of the awning. After cutting the sheets in half, I put one in place and got my client to take a look and decide what kind of overhang she wanted. I then set up to trim them down to the final size they'll be. I use a straight edge to mark out the crowns of the corrugation with a black felt tip pen. To get a nice straight cut with the grinder, I plunge cut through the top of the corrugation. I only cut halfway across the sheet before switching sides so I don't have to lean too far to make the cut. Because of the flexible nature of the polycarbonate, I have to adjust my timber supports so the cut-off piece doesn't bind up with my grinder. One of the disadvantages of cutting polycarbonate with a metal cut-off disc in your grinder is the way it melts the edges. I fix this by letting it cool and pulling off the melted lumps with a pair of pliers. Once I've cleaned up the edge of the cut side, I stack all the sheets across the top of our awning frame. There's going to be slightly more polycarbonate than we need, so I want to see how much overhang I have, and then I'll trim that with a pair of construction scissors. I don't use the grinder cutting system when I'm cutting a single sheet. It's easier and more manageable to use heavy construction scissors. I take my time to get a really straight cut because this will be exposed on one of the ends of our awning. I place the roof sheet back on our frame to check the fit and then go through adjusting all the sheets to make sure they're overlapping properly on their corrugations. With everything ready for the final stage of screwing the roof sheeting onto our frame, I take a coffee break and say hello to little Gus, who's been my helper throughout this project. To fix the polycarbonate in place, I start at one end, securing the outside edge flush to our frame. I'm laying out the screws in line with the blocks we added. We have 3 fixing points across the span of our awning. The idea is to secure it square and plumb on this outside edge, and then lean over and fix it at the overlap of the next sheet. We come back later and put the fixings in between once the layout is all locked and even along the entire awning. Because of the soft and flexible nature of the polycarbonate, it's critical to lock in all the overlapping corrugation points first. That way our layout won't be warped or pulled out of alignment across the awning. When the whole layout is secured, I work my way back, filling out the screw fixings in between the corrugation overlaps. There are different screw patterns for different applications with corrugated sheeting products. In my case, I'm in a really high wind area, so I'm choosing to put a screw in every second corrugation. To avoid warping the layout, I don't fix the screws from one end to the other. I put a screw in the center of the panel and work my way back to the outside edges. This helps spread the tension that we're adding with our screws evenly across the sheet. I pre-drill all my holes as a way of ensuring that I get a really accurate fixing on the top of the crown of the corrugation. I use my fingers to guide the pilot hole into the center of the corrugation, drilling out a row at a time. Then I follow it up by adding the specialized roofing screws, paying careful attention to put the right amount of pressure on the screw so the little rubber cup forms a good seal on top of the polycarbonate. Working along the entire length of our awning, fixing in each panel as I go. It's important for me to continually reposition the ladder so I don't have to reach too far outside my center of gravity. You can notice I'm using a towel to keep my tools and fixings on to avoid scratching our product. The installation of this last panel concludes the final step in our back door entry renovation. Let's take a look back at all the steps that got us to this point.
One way, gonna lay down pieces, won't waste another tear. Wait till it disappears. Can I go to sleep, buried in my chest? The only thing that's left. If you have love, you wanna give me some, and I will wait for someone else to come. Oh, it's sad, but it feels right.
Thanks for joining me this week on my YouTube channel. Check the link below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe button or make a comment so I can help you with your future construction solutions. And don't forget to follow our channel for more ideas and how-to tips for home and garden projects.